Hello, I am Tiffany Gunter, Deputy CEO and Chief Operating Officer for the Regional Transit Authority of Southeast Michigan. It is a privilege to talk to you today about the Regional Master Transit Plan. But before we begin talking about the plan, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the authority itself. The RTA is a transit authority that covers the four-county region of Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and Washtenaw counties. We are charged with, first, coordinating the services of the existing transit providers to create a regional transit system. Those transit providers include AAA TA in Ann Arbor, the Detroit Department of Transportation, DDOT, SMART, and the People Mover. These agencies will continue to function independently and serve the individual geographic areas as they always have. But they will also work closely with the RTA to create a truly regional transit system. And second, securing a long-term dedicated funding source to operate a seamless regional transit network, introduce new premium rapid transit options, and leverage over $1 billion in untapped and currently unavailable federal and state funding. There have been over 20 past failed attempts to solve the issue of regional public transportation. We're often asked, why is this attempt with the RTA any different? What's changed? The RTA was created by the Michigan legislature in December of 2012. There are a couple of key elements in our enabling legislation that give the RTA confidence that this time we can achieve success. They are, number one, we have a strong governance structure with appointees selected by the county executives of Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties, 2 from Washtenaw County, and 1 from the city of Detroit, along with a non-voting chairman who is appointed by the governor who serves as chair. While sometimes a tad harrowing, we have experienced unprecedented collaboration at the RTA. Second, the RTA is responsible for developing a master plan, a transit master plan, not just something that can sit on a shelf, but a living, implementable document, plan that will yield tangible results. A plan that ensures that every county will see an 85% return on their investment. Simply stated, this means that 85% of what is collected in a county through a millage must be returned to that county in the form of public transit capital and or operating dollars. Now this was no simple feat. The RTA convened a financial task force comprised of individuals with extensive banking and municipal finance backgrounds to review the financial assumptions that support the 20-year implementation and operation of the master plan. This task force conducted a thorough analysis of our assumptions to ensure a conservative approach that gives us full confidence that this time we can implement the plan as proposed. Third, and perhaps most importantly, we have the opportunity to raise funds to create regional transit by asking the public to consider a 1.2 mil property tax millage to support the implementation of the master plan. The question will appear on the November 8th, 2016 ballot. This is an opportunity that has never existed before in our region. Lastly, before we get into the plan, let's define the problem that we are actually trying to solve. Today, we invest $69 per capita for operating the bus systems in the region. The average investment in our peer regions, like Atlanta, Denver, Seattle, Cleveland, Chicago, range from $140 per capita all the way up to $420 per capita. We're resting at $50 per capita below the low end on public transit investment. Now, I don't subscribe to the notion that just because others spend more, that we should also spend more. It's not sufficient to simply say we don't spend enough. So, we could simply be more efficient in our service delivery model. And with limited resources, we would have to be, right? So let's unpack what that $69 per capita for operating gets us. According to SimCog, 92% of people in this region cannot get to work in under an hour using the public transit options that exist today. We only have services that cross the 8-mile border for 6 hours per day, 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. People often work outside of a 9-to-5 schedule. Most of the lines that operate end at 10 p.m. And our seniors and people with disabilities are sometimes left at the border between counties and are often required to be picked up by another system just to simply get to a doctor's appointment. There are no premium transit options that are competitive with the automobile from a travel time perspective. And we're missing out, because we don't have these options, we're missing out on nearly $1 billion in untapped federal and state funding in our region. Finally, our travel patterns analysis proves that 67% of Detroiters leave Detroit every day to go to other counties to work. Conversely, 72% of individuals in other counties are either traveling in between their other counties or into the city of Detroit to work. We don't have a system that supports these movements. So perhaps $69 per capita isn't sufficient for our region. So how can we close that gap? What will it take to get us there? To answer that question, I'm going to ask Ben Stupka, our Chief Planning Officer, to walk you through the Regional Master Transit Plan to show you what transit in our region could look like.
Thank you, Tiffany, for setting up the presentation. Again, my name is Ben Stupka. I'm the Chief Planning Officer for the Regional Transit Authority. I'm going to walk you through what we call the building blocks of the transit plan. The first building block, and really the base of the service, is our existing transit providers. SMART, DDOT, RTA in Ann Arbor, and the People Mover in downtown Detroit are the core of our system. And their continued success really provides the basis for any regional transit system. We took some steps within the plan itself to ensure that the long-term funding for all those agencies is as secure as possible. There are some funding sources, some formula funding sources, particularly state, federal sources, that we could compete for with the existing providers, and we built the plan to ensure that those providers are held harmless going forward. The providers participated along with us in doing the planning process. We have a providers advisory committee that meets every month, where we walked through the plan with them and helped actually develop some of the services. And one of the key pieces of the plan is that it is predicated on direct partnerships with the providers. Some of the services we'll be discussing later on in the presentation are services that we envision to be provided by the existing transit providers themselves in partnership with the RTA. So that coordination is really a core of not only the RTA's mission as an agency, but the plan and the implementation of the plan itself. The largest building block that we have in our transit plan is the bus rapid transit system. We have 4 bus rapid transit projects, one on Woodward connecting downtown Pontiac to downtown Detroit, the other on Gratiot connecting M59 to downtown Detroit, a third on Michigan Avenue connecting the airport to downtown Detroit, and a fourth on Washtenaw Avenue connecting downtown Ann Arbor to downtown Ypsilanti. What is bus rapid transit? Very common question. We like to think of it as light rail on wheels. So these are services that by and large operate in their own dedicated lane, so they don't mix with traffic, allowing for a very, very quick ride that's competitive with an automobile trip along the corridor. The corridors include technical upgrades like transit signal priority to allow, again, for a smooth ride along the corridor. They also include very large stations. They're spaced about a mile to a half mile apart. The stations have a lot of amenities to ensure security, enhanced lighting, seating. Generally, they're enclosed. They also have real-time information so you can see when your bus is coming. They also have the ability to pay for the bus before you board, which not only is very convenient for the rider, but actually makes a much faster ride. The bus rapid transit technology is something that's being implemented throughout not only the nation, but throughout the world. Along with the better transit and the more reliable and more rapid service, it actually provides great economic development benefits, particularly around transit-oriented development around the station areas. So we believe there's lots of opportunities along all of these corridors for the local communities to see a lot of improvement in property values and a chance to really think about economic development priorities in the future. The next major building block and the last leg of what we call our rapid transit system is the Regional Rail Project, connecting downtown Ann Arbor to downtown Detroit. This service will have 5 stops, one in downtown Ann Arbor, another in Ypsilanti, another in downtown Wayne, a 4th in Dearborn, and finally in the new center station in Detroit. This service operates along the existing Wolverine line, so folks may know that as where the Amtrak service operates today, so we'll be operating in partnership with that Amtrak service. The stations will include connections at the new center to the M1 rail, at the Dearborn station to the BRT project and some local services, at the Wayne station to some local services and the Airport Express service connecting people directly into the airport, and at the Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor stops to 2 new rail circulators that were developed as part of this plan to ensure that people in those communities can get to and from the rail stations. The next key building block in the master plan are the cross-county connectors. This service will eliminate the need to transfer between SMART and DDOT along major corridors in the service area. So today, if you're traveling along Grand River Avenue, and you want to get from Novi to downtown Detroit in the middle of the day, it would take you approximately 2 hours or more. You would have to transfer at least 2 or 3 buses and walk probably about 4 miles to get between Novi and downtown Detroit. The service that we're proposing will provide a 1-seat ride with no transfers at all normal operating hours during the weekday on Saturdays and Sundays. So that ride goes from 2 hours or more to about an hour to get from downtown Detroit to Novi. So that key is taking that transfer out, and we're doing that along all the major corridors that you see highlighted on the map here that go in and out of Detroit. The other major key here is providing east-west connections. So we have services on 15-mile, 12-mile, 9-mile, 8-mile. These east-west corridors are some of the largest commuting corridors and growing commuting corridors in our region. We wanted to provide long-distance trips at high frequencies along these corridors to capture new transit markets. So these services are really targeted to operate at about having a bus coming about every 15 minutes during the peak commute period, so during rush hour, and about half an hour for the rest of the day. So in most cases, this is doubling or tripling the level of service that are out there, particularly along the east-west corridors in the northern part of our service area. These services will be provided by DDOT and SMART. So we are working in partnership with them to have them be the providers of this service. We feel like this is a cost-efficient way and a coordinated way to really get this service on the street, allow our existing providers knowledge and facilities to be used to get the service on the street as quickly as possible and as cost effectively as possible. We've also included a capital program along with these services that will allow us to upgrade stations and provide real-time information at key locations along this corridor. One of the other key pieces of having this capital program is to allow us to target improvements in areas where there are high senior populations and high populations of people with disabilities to ensure that the system is accessible as possible to everybody. And that's one of the key pieces that we are looking to do within the system. The next building block is our Commuter Express service. These are buses that operate during rush hour periods, very limited stops along some of the major commute corridors in the region, including M59 and I-75. This service really only operates from large park and rides to other park and rides, and it's really to substitute for and provide alternatives for people to commute in the region. The next key service is our local service. These are brand new routes in places that do not have existing transit service today. So these routes provide connectivity into job centers, and they expand the reach of our fixed route system to areas that do not have transit service today. You'll generally see them at the edges of our system, in Livonia, Plymouth, along Michigan Avenue, also in northern Macomb and northern Oakland counties. The next building block in our master plan is the Airport Express service. We have developed 5 routes that all connect directly into the airport. This was one of the most common requests and issues we heard about from the public outreach that started in May of 2015. This is the most common thing we heard, is having a connection to the airport. So what does this service look like? It connects in Ann Arbor, downtown Detroit, Midtown Detroit, Macomb, Oakland County through Southfield and Troy, and Novi along I-275. These operate at very limited stops. They're travel-oriented services, so there'll be travel-oriented buses with the ability to store luggage, have high back seats, have Wi-Fi, and have bathrooms and other amenities on the buses. It would be appointment and reservation service, so it's something you could do online. You could walk up and reserve a seat, but it's really an online service, and it's really oriented towards the traveler. There is an existing service operating out of Ann Arbor today called Air Ride, and we really use that service as a model for developing these 5 new Airport Express routes throughout the region. The next building block is the M1 Rail streetcar, now called the Q Line, that operates between New Center and downtown Detroit. The RTA is anticipated to take over that service in 2027, though it will be up and running in 2017. This is a very exciting catalyst for transit in the downtown area. It'll be the first rail service, public transit rail service that the region has seen in decades. And we're really looking forward towards its implementation in 2017 and having that be the connection to downtown Detroit for all of our regional services. Another really key piece in the master plan and something we really focused on was developing a separate program that really focused on ADA accessibility and mobility management. One key thing I like to say is that this isn't the only place where we focus on ADA issues or seniors or mobility management. Again, the whole plan, the BRT projects, the cross-county connectors, the local services, we have capital investments built into those projects to allow for better accessibility to the fixed route system, so to the buses that you see every day. And that's really something that's important to the RTA and something we're very focused on. But on top of that, we developed a separate system to allow to work with people in the ADA community, seniors, and people in some of the communities that are outside of our fixed route area to provide more on-demand services. So there's really 2 key pieces to that. One is expansion of the ADA paratransit system to allow for more on-demand rides throughout our service area. This will also allow us to develop one-seat rides. You heard Tiffany talk earlier about people needing to transfer, people with disabilities needing to transfer at borders. We want to be able to do away with that with our ADA paratransit investment. The second part of our ADA program is called our Flexible Transit Program. This program focuses on providing better on-demand services in key communities that are outside of our fixed route area. These include Addison Township and Lake Orion, Chelsea and Dexter, Bruce Township, Armada Township, Woodhaven and Riverview, and several other communities that are outside of our fixed route service area. Many of these communities already work internally to provide on-demand services for seniors and people with disabilities. We want to be able to work in partnership with them and the existing large transit providers like SMART and DDOT to provide more on-demand services that connect people into the regional transit system. Further, we want to work in partnership with those existing transit providers in some of the smaller municipalities to see if there are any regional services that we can put together that will provide benefits to everybody. Things that we're thinking about are one-click, one-call services that would allow people to call or come to the RTA website to find out a lot of information about the host of different on-demand services and existing transit services that they can access today. We're also looking to see if we can work within this program to provide partnerships with companies like Uber and Lyft, partnerships with neighborhood community groups to really provide some solutions for that first and last mile of their transit trip. The last key piece of our master plan is the coordinated fare system. This is classically thought of as a single fare card that will allow you to get on any one of the systems in the region. So this is from the BRT to Ann Arbor's bus system to the Smart bus system to the People Mover. So you'll see an example of that with the Clipper card out of the San Francisco Bay Area. We want to take this a step further and look at developing a smartphone app that will allow you to track your transit trip, book your transit trip, and get on any transit service that you want just with the click of a button on your smartphone. We also want to look to provide the ability to use your own bank card or credit card with a chip to be able to use that to access any services. Well, we are looking at these kind of new options to allow people to gain access to the system. It's important for us to state that we will never take away the ability to use cash to access the system. And we also need to be very meaningful in how we deploy these types of systems to ensure that if we have new cards and new technology, that everybody has access to that technology and it's done in a way where everybody can use it. So we don't want to be exclusionary in how we develop and put this system out to the public. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our Deputy CEO to close out the presentation.
Thank you for listening to that presentation of the master plan. The RTA is focused on creating a system that moves people to areas of entertainment and education and employment opportunities, and we hope that you saw that in the plan today. A few closing thoughts to leave you with. The RTA really worked hard to develop a system that was attractive to all users in the system, those who use it today and those who may want to use it in the future. The second thing is that the RTA is not just another bus company. The RTA is focused on a cooperation and partnership model with the existing providers, much like what you find in Seattle at Sound Transit, which is an umbrella organization for multiple service providers. These systems work together seamlessly so that the end user doesn't care what system they're actually using because they all work together in harmony. The lines on the map for the Regional Master Transit Plan will all be RTA branded vehicles that are operated in partnership with the providers. This allows the RTA to maintain a regional identity while Smart, DDOT, and AAATA continue to provide local services that feed into regional routes. A couple more thoughts. An independent economic analysis conducted by the state using the REMI model indicates that as a result of direct RTA investment, we will increase gross regional product by $6 billion. Personal income